This podcast is not for the overly sensitive, the terminally optimistic, or anyone who thinks dating in your 50s is a whimsical romantic comedy. Listener discretion is advised.
Girls Can Tell with Trent Erickson. Subscribe, share, catch new episodes weekly, and try not to take it personally.
Picture this. You're walking alone on a dark street, late night, nobody's around. A stranger steps out of an alley as you pass, looks at you like they know you. Because they do. They fall into step behind you and start calling things out. What you had for breakfast, your sister's name, your favorite color, what you did last weekend. Not shouting, just stating. Certain, calm, like someone who's been watching you for a long time without you ever knowing they were there. That feeling crawling up your spine right now? That specific, unsettling, how do you know that about me feeling? That's what I want to talk about today. The version of it that's happening in dating constantly. Not on a dark street, in a perfectly lit conversation with someone you've just met who somehow already knows things about you that they have no obvious reason to know. And unlike the stranger in the alley, they're not threatening. Probably wearing a cape with an eye patch. I mean, that's what I pictured the guy in the alley looking like for some reason. They're just sure, which somehow makes it even more unsettling. You're talking to someone new. The conversation's going well, things are easy, fun, and everything seems great. Then they say something that stops you. Something that tells you that they know something about you that you never told them. Maybe a mutual friend said something. Maybe they Googled you. Maybe they followed you on social media and you didn't realize they've been watching your life from a distance for a while. And instantly, the conversation changes. Because you thought you were two people getting to know each other, but you're not. At least not in the same way. You're a person who knows almost nothing about someone sitting across from a person who already has a file on you. That imbalance is what we're talking about. It's happening a lot in modern dating, and I want to look at what it does to people on both sides of it. Starting over is exhausting. The lived experience of having to introduce yourself again, having to explain who you are, how you think, what you've been through, what you want, what you won't tolerate, your favorite color, what foods you like, what kind of family you have, your politics, your friends, your thoughts on dating, where you live, what kind of car you drive, what you do for work, what you do for fun. Again, to another complete stranger who may or may not still be around in 3 weeks, is brutal. You do it once and it's fine. You do it 10 times, it starts to feel like putting on a show. You do it 50 times and something in you dies. You stop putting the same energy into the explanation because from experience, you know that the explanation might not matter. The person might disappear before they ever really knew you anyway. I've been on dating apps for over a year, actually longer than that, and I know exactly what that feels like. There's the me that went into early conversations, curious and open, and there's the me that goes in now, still present and willing, but carrying the weight of every conversation that went nowhere, every person I explained myself to who eventually stopped responding, every exchange that felt like it was becoming something and then quickly went nowhere. After enough of those, you start to think it would be easier to just hand someone a document. Here's who I am, here's how I think, here's what I've been through. Read this and let me know if you want to proceed. The alternative is going through it live again for the 307th time, and I'm starting to think I'd rather get a tooth pulled using a doorknob with no Novocaine. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. We were pretty tough back in the day. Here's something about my specific situation that adds a layer most people don't have to deal with. I've been in radio for 32 years, which means I've been a public figure. I've been in people's lives, in their cars, in their kitchens, on their commutes, in the background of their days for 3 decades, as a voice that was always just there, consistently, reliably, part of the texture of their daily life in a way they probably never thought much about. And what happens when a voice is present in someone's life over years is something interesting and a little strange. They feel like they know you. You've never met them, you've never had a conversation, but because your voice became familiar to them, the way a neighbor's face becomes familiar, not through any particular interaction, but through simple repetitive exposure. You were there when they were running late. You were there when something was wrong with their morning. You were there in the background of hundreds of ordinary days that added up to some version of you living in their head. And then they meet you. Maybe it's on a dating app or a mutual friend introduction. And the moment they realize who you are, something shifts in the dynamic that you can feel immediately. They're comfortable with you in a way that doesn't match the fact that you've never spoken before. They reference things you said on the air a long time ago, like they're shared memories. They feel like the introduction has already happened, even though from your side it's just beginning. And that's great, in a sense. You want people to remember what you say, but it leaves you standing there trying to figure out who this person is while they're already somewhere in the middle of knowing you. I do want to stop here and say something about what it actually feels like from the inside, because I don't think I've ever said it this directly before. There's something disorienting about someone feeling emotionally close to you before you've had the chance to feel anything about them at all. People have listened to me on the radio for years. They've listened to 60 episodes of this podcast. They've heard me talk about my fears, my failures, and my opinions, and my worst moments and my best ones. And they arrive at a conversation feeling connected, like they're picking up where something left off, and I'm meeting them for the very first time. That difference between what they feel and what I feel is just the weird reality of what happens when one person has been in another person's life without the reverse being true. It creates kind of a loneliness that's hard to describe, because I'm the one being known and I'm still alone in the not knowing. You'd think being known would feel like connection, and sometimes it does. But sometimes it feels like you're in a room full of people who all recognize you while you've never seen any of them before. Familiar flows in one direction only, and no matter how nice the person in front of you is, you can't manufacture the feeling of knowing them just because they know you. About a year into doing this podcast, I realized the show accidentally solved the exhaustion problem. Countless hours of episodes of honest, specific, unfiltered thinking about dating, relationships, and human behavior turns out to be a pretty complete portrait of who I am as a person. How I think, what I value, what I've been through, what I find funny, what I'll put up with or won't put up with, and what I'm still working on. It's all there, said out loud, recorded. When someone I'm talking to asks about the podcast and I tell them what it is, something interesting happens. If they listen to one episode, they usually listen to all of them. And by the time they come back to the conversation, they know things about me that would have taken months of careful, gradual disclosure to reveal in a normal dating situation. The cliff notes on who I am already exist. And for someone exhausted by the process of explaining themselves over and over to people who don't stay, that feels like relief because it kind of takes the load off me. Until it doesn't. When someone has listened to 60 episodes of your most honest thinking before they've had a single real conversation with you, the playing field is not level. They know you know nothing about them. I've had this happen multiple times now. Someone references something I said in an episode I barely remember recording. They quote me back to myself. They tell me they know I feel a certain way about something because I said it 6 months ago. They arrive already having formed opinions about me, not based on who I am with them, based on who I was alone with Holly in my apartment talking into a microphone on a Tuesday night. And I'm over there not knowing a thing about them. It's the modern equivalent of showing up to a first date and having them say, "Yeah, Jason told me a lot about you." Except instead of Jason, it's 60 hours of your own voice telling them a lot about you. You chose this. You wanted to be known. Now you are by someone who's essentially a stranger to you. That's a weird thing. Part of what makes early connection exciting is mutual discovery. Two people revealing themselves to each other gradually. The slow accumulation of shared content that eventually becomes the foundation of something real. When one person already has 10 solid hours of content, that mutual discovery is gone before it starts. They already went through their version of discovery alone. In the car, at the gym, lying in bed with earbuds on. They formed impressions and maybe even feelings about you without you ever being present for any of it. And they arrived at the conversation already somewhere in the middle of a process you're only just beginning. There's no clean way to catch up. The version of you they've formed an opinion about is accurate. It's genuinely you, but it's also specifically what you chose to say out loud. not the you that shows up when something goes wrong or the you at 6 a.m. before coffee. The podcast tells them a lot. It doesn't tell them everything. This isn't just a podcaster or broadcaster problem. People have experienced some version of this asymmetry. The person who Googled you before your first date and knows your professional history, your social media presence, things you posted years ago that you don't remember, they show up knowing things. You show up not knowing what they know. The person who was close with your ex, who has a fully assembled picture of you built from someone else's perspective on your patterns and your worst moments. They've already decided things about you before you've even opened your mouth. The person who's been following you on social media for months, who's watched your life in small increments from a distance, who feels like they know you because they've been present for your public moments, even though you've never been present for any of theirs. In all of these cases, the dynamic is the same. One person walks in knowing more than the other, and that knowledge, however it was acquired, creates an imbalance that both people have to navigate, even if only one of them is aware it exists. I don't have a good solution because I don't think one exists. The information imbalance of modern dating is built into the way we present ourselves online and the way people research each other before committing to a conversation. What you can do is just be aware it exists. If you're the one who knows more, say so early as an acknowledgement. It levels the playing field slightly and removes the unsettling feeling the other person gets when they realize you knew something they didn't know you knew. Plus, it's a good way for them to ask questions and get clarity on some preconceived ideas they may be coming in with, based on something they might have taken out of context. If you're the one who's been known in advance, don't put on a show. The version of you they've already formed an opinion about is the version of you that you put out there deliberately, so I sure hope they match up. That's the great part about being genuine, because you never have to worry about this. And if you're tired by starting over and the accumulated weight of explaining yourself again to someone who might not stay, understand that tiredness is legitimate. It's the natural result of trying repeatedly in a place that makes trying harder than it should be. Don't stop explaining yourself. Find someone worth the explanation. And when you do find the person who gets the whole version of you, not just the public one, not just the podcast or radio voice or Google results or what Jason told them, all the starting over will have been worth it, even if it took 308 times to get there.